The Trump media stock continues to crash, raising major issues about Donald Trump's legal liability. They are both civil and criminal. We'll break that down. Donald Trump not focusing so much on campaigning, the king of selling tchotchkes. He's selling coins and mugs and photos, and that's how he's spending his time right now as the stock is tanking. Vice President Kamala Harris surging in the polls. This is the intersection of law and politics. And again, we want to show you the importance of the law part and a fact-based, evidence-based world where Donald Trump is living in the opposite, going around saying, you know, I did such a good job at that debate. I clearly won the debate. Meanwhile, you also have Donald Trump's lawyer, Alina Habba. She's just posting the strangest photos of herself now, photo after photo, strange stuff. We will break it down. We'll also talk about what is going on in the Washington. It's hard for me to keep a straight face and even talk about it. Who's that appealing to? She's a lawyer. What's going on? Washington, D.C. criminal case updates. We'll give you updates in Georgia, and then we'll give you updates in the federal case where Matt Gaetz is implicated. And we'll talk about the intersection of Matt Gaetz and Mark Robinson, the handpicked gubernatorial candidate in North Carolina, who's, wow, I'll just say that. We'll talk about that and more on Legal AF. Michael Popok, how you doing, sir?
That might be our new slogan. Wow, I'll just say that. I'll just comment on that. That's where we're at. Perverts have infiltrated the Republican Party in MAGA, and the chief pervert, Donald Trump, is embracing them. And they can't get Mark Robinson. We'll talk about him later. They can't get the black Nazi, self-proclaimed, on a porn site. They can't get him off the ticket for the gubernatorial race, which is slightly down ballot from the presidential race in the all-important state of North Carolina. Donald Trump's got a lot of problems at the intersection of law and politics. We're going to talk about a number of them today. In Georgia, we have two women who died a tragic death because of Donald Trump's MAGA Supreme Court and his taking away a woman's right to choose, and these two women dying as a direct result of the bans in states like Georgia. It came up during the Oprah interview with Kamala Harris because the surviving family brought it public, and it's not two, it's thousands. It's just two that we know about now. Kamala Harris did a smart thing to use the death of these women to highlight, to make some sense out of this, to highlight these anti-women policies of MAGA in a state like Georgia. And then in North Carolina, got another example of self-inflicted wound here for the Trump campaign by continuing to embrace somebody who's obviously a self-proclaimed pervert on a porn site, and is going to be going up against the attorney general for the state in North Carolina. This is going to bring voters lots of things around the ballot in November, in addition to Trump versus Kamala Harris, including women's rights, including restoring women to first-class citizenship, and other things like that. We've got a lot to talk about today. I'm really excited.
Well, look, it is the intersection of law and politics. And to me, the politics of somebody in their private life having certain pornographic predilections, or the goal isn't to shame people's private lives. The issue is when these people use the law to then take away the freedoms of others, and the hypocrisy that exists there, using the law to bludgeon others and take away the freedom of we, the people. I want to share this with you. You mentioned Mark Robinson. I want to show a few video clips at the outset, though. Here's the new ad that Vice President Kamala Harris is running across North Carolina. Let's play this clip.
And he's been an unbelievable Lieutenant Governor, Mark Robinson.
For me, there is no compromise on abortion.
I think you're better than Martin Luther King.
We could pass a bill saying you can't have an abortion in North Carolina for any reason.
The abortion in this country is about killing a child because you aren't responsible enough to keep your skirt down.
I've been with him a lot. I've gotten to know him, and he's outstanding.
Donald Trump and Mark Robinson. They're both wrong for North Carolina.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
There's a reason when you present the facts and law to juries and grand juries across the nation, unanimously they find against Donald Trump. And the interesting aspect, although interesting perhaps isn't the right word, is when you then present the politics to the people, the facts get blurred and you start to not have that unanimous sense and you start to have a divided country. It is because people are not getting the facts. I mean, that ad, though, presented the facts, and Mark Robinson can say, oh, that didn't happen. That account name that's linked to me that has all the indicate, that's not mine. In a normal body politic, that would be rejected. That person would be removed, not rallied behind. Similarly, if we're living in an evidence-based world, here's what Donald Trump said at the recent speech he gave in Washington, D.C., where he clearly lost the debate to Vice President Kamala. When Biden did not do well in the debate, Biden said, I had a bad night. I didn't do well. I'm sorry if I let people down, but here's what I'm offering, right? At least Biden did that, even though I thought Donald Trump did equally horrible in that first debate, but the press didn't cover that. It's a whole nother story. But here's what Trump's saying. He's like, I won. I think I did great. Here, play the clip.
And let me tell you, I won that debate by a lot. By a lot. I walked off the stage, I said, man, did I beat her, even though I was against 3 people. I kept saying, I said, what are you doing here?
What are you doing? I mean, and meanwhile, his lawyer, Alina Habba's, she's posting these photos. It's not like we're digging up these photos. And I mean, I think we have one of the best research teams in the game, but Alina Habba's posting photos like this. I mean, this is what she's putting out to the public. She's the main advisor and surrogate to Trump, and she's his lawyer. And that's the photos that are being posted. She's posting this photo right here. I mean, is she auditioning for a modeling gig? I mean, what are we doing? Or this photo right here with the rapper, the MAGA rapper, Forgot Chio Blow, and she's wearing a fake gold Donald Trump necklace. I mean, what are we doing here? I mean, Donald Trump's making posts like this, kissing the flag. I'll show that other post in a little bit. Yeah, I don't even need to read this post. Just look at that. That's a madman. I could go into it where he's saying, women need to listen to me. Women, stop doing this. You need to listen to Trump, women. I mean, but just look at the way that even looks. Who writes like that? Setting aside that the content is absolutely crazy. I'm going to fix everything for the women. You will no longer, this is what he goes in that message. You will no longer be thinking about abortion because it is now where it always had to be, with the states and with powerful exceptions like those Reagan insisted on. I mean, and Democrats are demanding babies be executed. I will protect you. It's crazy. And then posting him kissing the flag. Popok, I start off this episode talking about the politics and then going towards that intersection because, again, what is this? What is this?
Well, I'm not sure I can answer that. I don't. How much time do we have? But it is a psychosis that we're watching that has enveloped the Republican Party and the cult, and these are symptoms of it. This is a disease, and what you have pointed out, the crazy semi-soft porn photos of Alina Habba, him doing whatever he's doing to the flag, him saying that he's going to be the protector of women, like we're in, like they're chattel that need his protection. He's the great savior of women in this country. When we know the exact opposite true. I'll tell you where hard-nosed and clear-eyed thinking is happening on Wall Street. And Wall Street is telling the world that Donald Trump is a loser. Because not only, we're going to turn to this in a bit, not only has Trump's stock been crushed and hurling down, I believe, to penny stock range. It's getting there fast, too. We'll talk about that. But part of it is a CNBC poll that they call the Fed Report of the top 30 economists and fund managers that work on Wall Street. All of them picked Trump to win when Joe Biden was still in the race. All of them picked Trump to win by a lot when the first 9 days of Kamala Harris's campaign. But now, after the debate performance, after the debacle of the Trump stock crush, after the debacle of on the day after an attempted assassination or whatever that was on the golf course in Florida, he takes whatever goodwill he may have generated for himself, and he decides that's the day to launch cryptocurrency with one admitted criminal and a guy that used to teach people how to pick up hot girls on YouTube. That was that, and the spiritual leader for the venture, the Fredo of the family, is apparently Barron. I don't normally go after Barron except when they make Barron out to be the guru of cryptocurrency, which is what they promoted to be on this platform. So that's what he did. So the market's watching that. And then the market's watching the surge of Kamala Harris around the country in all the battleground states, how she is so exquisitely and perfectly running a campaign. That's what we're watching. We're watching almost a perfectly run campaign without a misstep. It's much like a Barack Obama. She has some people that used to work for Barack Obama that are helping her, but these are all her decision-making ultimately as the CEO of this campaign. And so what's the market said? The market said to the stock price, crush. This is down 75% in the last 6 months. A stock that was once $90 is now $13.50. And I'm sure on the opening bell on Monday, it's going to crack to $10. I had one of our listeners and followers that's in the stock business and an analyst write me this morning an entire analytic where he believes that the natural price for this is $5 or lower, and it'll be getting there soon. And I agree with him based on there is no fundamentals. There is no business model to this. The market has spoken. The 30 economists now put Kamala Harris into the lead by a healthy, they have her up 11 points since she announced her candidacy, and now firmly in the lead of who they think is going to win the presidency. And most importantly, on the economy, which is what he thinks is always his advantage, they now think these mandarins, these 30 leading economists, fund managers, money managers, and the like, they now think that Kamala Harris is better overall for the country and better for the economy overall, or at least tying Donald Trump. The only thing they think Donald Trump's better for is the stock market, and I think they're wrong. Look at the surge that's happened on the stock market, hitting new heights in the last several days. I think it's all an indicator that the smart money believes that Kamala Harris is going to win in November. And sort of that's where we're at. This other stuff, this embracing of the perverts, because Donald Trump is one, and a sex offender and a sex abuser, the price that he's going to pay in November, I think at this moment is almost incalculable and can't be picked up in the polling. It is women and people who support women and want to restore them to first-class citizenship in this country going to the polls in mass numbers in states that really, really matter, like North Carolina, Georgia, and Pennsylvania, and pulling the lever and flushing the toilet and getting rid of Donald Trump.
Trump has failed in businesses his entire life. And that's not a hyperbolic term, failed. You just go back and you look at the casinos. They went bankrupt and bankrupt and bankrupt again. You look at the, I call them the tchotchkes, the different things that he's been selling over. He loves selling tchotchkes, right? As if he could put his name on something, he loves it. But they all failed in the past. A while ago, right? I mean, Trump Vodka and Trump University and Trump Steaks and Trump Water and Trump Mortgage. Now, he would make money on the licensing aspect of it, but investors and the companies, they would get screwed, and then he would move on to the next one. So with Trump Media in a booming stock market right now, he had the chance, if we're using evidence, for a reset, right? To say, I'm a good business. Look, everybody. I had the biggest position in the world. I was the president, which is, I hate to even say that, but he was. I'm starting a media company. He put together an entire deck where the investors were told, we're going to build a Netflix or a Disney or a company like that of the future. He made projections that in 2024, he was going to make the revenue was going to be $850 million, and it would start to be profitable. It's made about $1 million or less each quarter so far. Last year, it did a total of $4 million in revenue. This year, it'll probably do about the same. It's lost about $350 million. And when I say lost, that money goes somewhere. So where do you think that money is going to? I mean, insiders and other people likely, in his orbit and people who lent him money and people like that. But this has been an utter failure as a company. So when you think about the valuation of it, assume there's 100 million outstanding shares. I think there's more. I think it's closer to 200 million, but we'll just do some basic math. Popok, you say $5 a share. Let's assume it's $1 a share. There's 100 million shares outstanding. So that means all of the shares combined, and I won't get into the complicated aspect of what the float is or anything like that. Then you would say if each share is worth $1 at the most basic level, and again, I'm not going to go into complicated stuff, but $100 million. Okay, so a company that's losing $300 million and earning about $4 million in revenue, frankly, if you gave it the most generous projection, give it a 10 times multiple on revenue, and ignore the losses, which you would never do.
It's $40 million company.
$40 million company, which means it would be about 40 cents a share. And
it's a penny stock. He owns 115 million shares. Can I just bounce around with you?
But let me show you what he's doing.
Yeah, go ahead.
This morning. Good morning, everyone. I have something incredible to share. What do you think it's going to be?
Crypto?
About the election, what he's going to do, a new healthcare plan. I know he had concepts. No. Good morning, everyone. I have something incredible to share today as we are introducing the launch of our official Trump coins. It's the only official coin designed by me and proudly minted here in the USA. The President Donald J. Trump First Edition Silver Medallion will be available starting Wednesday, September 25th, 2024. And this is where I go. Again, I don't care what freaking political party you're. What the heck is this?
I know what it is, and I've said it on Hot Takes, and so have you. We are watching Donald Trump make the closing argument why he does not want to be president of the United States. He is quietly quitting his own campaign. There's no other way to interpret. The easiest way to interpret him selling crypto the day after an assassination attempt with the people that he's gotten into bed with in that company, selling these coins. I feel like I'm watching a long lost episode of The Boys. It looks like Homelander is selling coins for money. Is that you only sell tchotchkes parallel to a campaign that's got 40 something days left if you know you're not going to win. And you want to make and grift as much money as you can all the way through. If he was serious about a campaign, this would be the hallmarks of it, just to remind people. You could just look over at Kamala Harris and you know what I'm talking about. You'd have a cadre of professional pollsters, social media people, professional campaigners, and all of you'd have that. Okay, Donald Trump has none of that. I defy anybody on this show to tell me the name of 3 people that are in charge, that are professionals that are in charge of his campaign. He has nobody in charge of his social media. That's why he's getting outspent 100 to 1 by Kamala Harris every place where it matters. He has nobody who's a reliable pollster. He is his own campaign manager, effectively, or he relies on people like Laura Loomer or other crazy alt-right social media podcasters that you've never heard of to help him win. He would be, if he was really serious about winning, he'd be campaigning on a regular basis in states that matter, not New York, where his last rally was, in a state he lost by double digits, or in Montana, where the one before that was, where he's never going to, Montana is a red state, and it was never a battleground state. Where is he in Georgia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and the Midwest, and the Rust Belt? Where is he? He's nowhere. And that indicates somebody who's in my view, has sort of given up. He thinks he can phone into interviews with Fox News or Newsmax, phone his way in. It's insulting to the American people. I mean, he's insulting to women every time he picks up his pen or taps something out on his social media. But he's insulting the American people before their very eyes by not trying to earn their vote. He's doing nothing to earn their vote. He's not rallying. He's not campaigning. He's not doing local interviews. He's not pressing the flesh. He's not using shoe leather. He's not doing anything. And he doesn't have any money to do it, even if he wanted to. That's where the money gap is also playing a part. Another place where there's only a few places the American people can speak before an actual election about what they're, besides polls. Wall Street and the stock market. When there's a stock called DJT, you can do it there, which they've done, and they've spoken resoundingly against Donald Trump. You can do it in special elections leading up to the election. They've done it there, and Donald Trump loses every special election or anything that involves abortion or women's rights leading up to the election, right? And you can do it in fundraising. Right now, it's a binary process. The only thing I can do is write a bigger check for somebody that I support. And do it again and again and again. And she is overwhelmingly bringing in the money because she's seen as a winner and he's seen as a loser. And so we have no friction between the intersection of law and politics. We have to live there to explain what we're watching going into the November election, and then add on to it all the cases that you and I are going to talk about. I mean, I'll leave it on this before we go to the segment or our ad break. You showed pictures of one of his lawyers. He only has a total of 3 lawyers supported by 2 associates and I think 1 paralegal to handle 4 major simultaneous criminal cases and appeals, okay, at the same time against the United States of America, the Department of Justice, and hundreds of lawyers. Right? 5 of which we can name, and the rest are just unsung heroes behind the scenes against a 3-person law firm where one of the people that could be doing real work and trying to help him, although every time she helps him, she's got the opposite of the Midas touch. She turns everything to crap, is Alina Habba. No lawyer has lost more for Donald Trump in state or federal court, criminal or civilly or appeals than her. But so she's off doing, soft porn photo shoots instead of doing any real work. And the lawyers that are doing real work are missing deadlines where they have to file emergency motions because they missed another deadline. They have to ask for extensions of time in cases where they actually won and they have to ask for more time on the appeal, like in the Mar-a-Lago case and Judge Cannon. And now we're going to talk, when we get to the DC case, because of how Judge Chutkan runs her courtroom, you and I and the rest of Legal AF are going to be talking about, for the next every other day, another brief, another motion that's filed for 7 different issues just in the DC elections case, DC interference case, from now until November, on top of the Second Circuit Court of Appeal about the sentencing for the 34 felony count conviction, on top of the 11th Circuit about whether Mar-a-Lago and the decision by Judge Cannon was wrong. Spoiler alert, it was. It's going to get reversed. And then everything else that he's got to keep an eye on in his ecosystem.
To be fair, I'm not fully sure if that's softcore porn. I'm not going to get into a debate on what constitutes or doesn't constitute. I mean, I'll stop there. I'm not sure. How
about a glamour shot? I'll change it to glamour shot.
Okay, but let me fact check you for real though, because I think Donald Trump does have a law firm. It's called the House Republicans and the House Oversight Committee. And then his other law firm is a law firm of 6 people, the most powerful lawyers on the Supreme Court. He's got Clarence Thomas and he's got Roberts, who put out a memo before the cases even arrived on his desk that he was going to rule in favor of Donald Trump and write the opinions. He's got Alito. He's got, I like beer. I like my beer. He's got Justice Kavanaugh. That's what Justice Kavanaugh said in his confirmation. He's got Amy Coney Barrett. And he's got Neil Gorsuch.
Well, maybe not Amy Coney Barrett. I'd put her in a set, but everybody else you listed, she certainly has.
She may be of counsel. We will be right back. I want to remind everybody, though, Michael Popok launching the Legal AF channel on YouTube. It's already got about 37,000 subscribers in its first 3 or 4 days. You just search on YouTube Legal AF MTN and subscribe to @LegalAFMTN. A link is also in the description. It's just going to be a place where you'll get to hear from more Michael Popok, and then we're going to bring in our legal contributors, and we can focus there on other issues that we know as we're getting closer to the election, we got to focus more on the political stuff. And so we're going to be building this channel because we want to make sure we give you all of your legal news as well. So please, let's get to 100,000 subscribers at the @LegalAFMTN channel. Subscribe right now. We'll be right back after our first quick break.
As many of you know, I have a growing family, with our daughter arriving just this month. Making sure I have a plan in place to reduce stress for my family has been increasingly on my mind. The things we build our future around are the things worth protecting. Making an estate plan now means gaining security of your assets and peace of mind for you and your loved ones. With Trust and Will, you can create and manage a custom estate plan starting at just $199. Go to trustandwill.com/legalaf for 10% off plus free document shipping. Trust and Will lets you keep your family prepared and protected by managing your will or trust online. Each will or trust is state-specific and customized to your needs. Think care wishes, nomination guardians, final arrangements, and power of attorney. You deserve to be in control of your life, not the state. Trust and Will has made estate planning accessible and affordable. Their simple step-by-step process guides you from start to finish with ease. Save loved ones time and stress by having all your documents in one place with bank-level encryption. Their live customer support is available through phone, chat, and email, and they've proudly earned an overall rating of excellent and thousands of 5-star reviews on Trustpilot. Secure your assets and protect your loved ones with Trust and Will. Get 10% off plus free shipping of your estate plan documents by visiting trustandwill.com/legalaf. That's 10% off and free shipping at trustandwill.com/legalaf. Let's face it, after a night with drinks, I don't bounce back the next day like I used to. I have to make a choice. I can either have a great night or a great next day. That is, until I found ZBiotics Pre-Alcohol Probiotic Drink. ZBiotics Pre-Alcohol Probiotic Drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to make ZBiotics your first drink of the night, drink responsibly, and you'll feel your best tomorrow. Now look, I won't lie. I was a bit on the fence about pre-alcohol initially. But then, while hanging out with my fantasy football draft crew over at our favorite Jersey Shore sports bar, I gave it a shot. And believe me, it's the real deal. I spent the entire next day doing all my favorite things with my family, including a long hike on our favorite trail. I kept hearing about pre-alcohol, and I wondered what it was actually like. But now that I've tried it, I believe the hype. And with their GMO technology, they will release different products that help address toxic byproducts of modern living in the gut. Go to zbiotics.com/legalaf to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use LegalAF at checkout. ZBiotics is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/legalaf and use the code LegalAF at checkout for 15% off.
We're back from a brief break right there. Thank you to our sponsors. The discount codes are in the descriptions below. Love those products. Great stuff right there. Check them out. It also helps grow the show. I saw so many people joining the YouTube channel, the Legal AF MTN legal channel during the break. Let's get that to, could we get 100,000 on this episode? We will see. Probably not, but we could potentially come close. All right, Popok, as we talk about some of these developments in the other Trump cases, I don't want to forget the stuff that Trump's lawyers were saying at this point many, many months ago, years ago at this point. Like, do you remember when Trump's lawyers, Alina Habba and Christina Bobb, their first argument was to blame the FBI, that the FBI planted nuclear secrets and codes and all of these things in Mar-a-Lago, that this was all part of an FBI scheme against Donald Trump? Here, play this clip of Alina Habba saying it.
This is a joke. This is memento. And quite honestly, I'm concerned that they may have planted something. You know, at this point, who knows? I don't trust the government. And that's a very frightening thing as an American. If I didn't want to be an American and go to another, this is third world stuff. We've heard it. This is Cuba. This is not our country.
People are
And again, at the intersection of law and politics, I think it's important to mention that in law, an evidence-based world, I mean, what she's saying never holds up. There's a reason that she loses all of the cases where she represents, because she tries to do that in a court of law. And the judge is like, okay, can you show me evidence for that? Can you show me a document or a video? No, we just have a hunch. We're just saying it. And of course, that argument mutated into, you know what? He can do whatever he wants to do. He's immune. He could do anything. He telepathically declassified. And then they find a judge that Trump appointed or Supreme Court justices to go along with 8 different iterations later of the argument before they're like, you know what? Where they went through every excuse and they basically then got to, he could just do whatever he wants, right? Justice Roberts, yeah, he could do whatever he wants. Sure, separation of powers. They're like kings. Conservative, we're trying to conserve the monarchy, aren't we? We're trying to conserve not the Constitution. That was, you silly liberals. You thought conservative was conserving the Constitution. It was conserving the Magna Carta. That's what we were doing. Come on, Michael Popok, I want you to give us updates on what's happening in the Washington, D.C. case. Give us updates there. Yeah. Then we'll pivot and talk about what's going on in Georgia, what's going on with Matt Gaetz. But I just wanted to start with that because here we are, years later, 8 iterations, different arguments later. And I don't want to forget that aspect of it, where at the end of the day, after losing, Trump then appoints judges and justices who just put their finger on the scale and they're like, all right, you do whatever you want.
Well, I'm going to bounce right off of that. I'm going to be doing a new hot take on the new Legal AF channel about news today that a new legal watchdog group is now warning pro-Trump lawyers in ads that they're running in various battleground states about not subverting democracy and saying to them, don't risk your law license. I mean, this is where we're at now. This group that I'll be talking about, the 65 Project, New York Times is talking about, is running ads that is basically telling them you could lose your law license and it ain't worth it just to try to support your cult leader in Donald Trump. I think it's a remarkable turn of affairs, and I think it's a great move by pro-democracy groups like Project 65. We'll talk more about that. Let's turn to what's going on in the District of Columbia, because this wasn't covered. we start a lot of our segments with, this wasn't covered by corporate media the way it should have been. We're going to do it here. That's why you and I came up with Legal AF, and that's why we got the Legal AF channel now to do the heavy lift that others aren't doing. And so in particular, this filing that Donald Trump and his lawyers just made late, by the way, they missed the deadline by 7 hours, figured out that they were late, and then filed an emergency application to tell the judge, pretty please, can we be 7 hours late because we missed the fact that you told us to file it by 5 p.m. and we're not ready at 5 p.m., please? All right, so Judge Shutkin's going to let them file it, and they did. But instead of filing what they were supposed to file, because they can't do that, the judge on September the 5th, after a hearing that you and I reported on, set forth listen to both sides, rejected most of what Donald Trump's lawyers were asking for, adopted most of what the Department of Justice was asking for, in order to have an efficient kind of 2 tracks of 2 separate types of motions to get them all done by November. She even commented, rightly so, that I know that the loser on these motions are going to take an appeal. And the quicker we get this up to the D.C. Court of Appeals and to the Supreme Court, the better. Look, I've had judges say the same thing. I've had judges say these are very difficult concepts or issues in this, and I know the loser is going to take this up on appeal. So let's make sure we make a proper record. It gets said a lot at the trial court level, a little inside baseball, speaking of Lena Haba with her baseball metaphors. So here, the judge said, no, I'm not going to do what Donald Trump wants. This is back in the beginning of September. I'm not going to do the immunity decision first as required by, and not have the other stuff done in parallel, and then maybe get to the other stuff, and then suddenly we're in 2025. I'm not doing that. And so Donald Trump didn't like that. So Donald Trump, it was only supposed to file a motion related to discovery, which is the information or documents, including witness statements, that the defense is entitled to under our system of justice, under a concept we call Brady, named after a case. And it requires the government to turn over inculpatory, things that tend to prove somebody's guilt, and exculpatory, things that prove their innocence, in documents, information, witness statements, and the like, on things that are relevant to any relevant defense. Now, we reported 8 months ago. No, it has to be longer than that because the case has been on ice for 9 months ago. Over a year ago, you and I reported on a series of motions that Donald Trump tried to raise about defenses that he wanted to raise and documents and information he wanted from the government to support those defenses. And the Judge Chutkan, went methodically through his list and said almost all of them are not proper defenses. And I'm not going to give you the discovery or force the government to go look for documents that likely don't exist or are not relevant to any defense that would be relevant in a court of law. You know, like, you got a hunch and it's interesting to me. I'm curious. Like, that's not a defense in a criminal court. You know, I want to use it for my campaign, which is really what he's trying to do. So the judge already rejected all that. And the only thing he was supposed to do now was to file a motion to explain to the judge why there was some outstanding discovery he believes he was entitled to that hadn't been turned over to him. That's not what he did. He starts the brief again with a motion to dismiss the indictment on the immunity grounds. In fact, the first line, there it is. The first line says, this case should be dismissed promptly. Okay. I've been in cases, and so have you, Ben, where there's multiple issues going on. But on the issue that you're supposed to address, you don't have to keep mentioning, and you're not supposed to be mentioning, other issues that are still before the court in other areas. She's already set the briefing schedule on immunity. There's going to be 2 briefs by the government before the election. There's going to be 1 brief by Donald Trump before the election. That obviously has chapped his ass, that he only gets one thing to say, and the government gets to air new evidence, which they've already said they're going to do, to prove their case to the American people effectively before the November election. They hate that. So they're telling the judges, you should dismiss it right now. We shouldn't even be talking about anything or discovery or other motion practice right now. So this is not going to go over well with Judge Chutkan. This is not what she asked for. And then the rest of the 34 pages is just I used to call it the best of. It's the worst of Donald Trump's prior filings that have all lost in front of Judge Chutkan on the same issues and the same defenses. She's done this already. And the fact that they just want to do it all over again, this time with Todd Blanche and Emile Beauvais taking the lead, as opposed to their prior counsel, is not going to change the outcome. That's the definition of insanity. Doing the exact same thing and expecting a different outcome. It's also the definition of sanctionable conduct by continuing to file it in court and have the court have to tell you, this thing that you asked me to file late is not the thing you were supposed to file. I've denied almost all of it in the past, and it's denied again. And the immunity issue is going to be briefed. And no, there's 2 remarkable things here. They asked again to have the case and the briefing around the immunity changed and immediately go back to what they've already argued. So it's a motion for reconsideration, which is improper at this point in the way they've done it, and that'll be rejected. But here's the point, Ben. I don't know if you caught this in the briefing. In the briefing, even you and I, as extraordinary and unprecedented and unhinged as we believe the Trump versus U.S. immunity decision is by the MAGA right wing of the court, 6-3 on July the 1st. And as much immunity and insulation from criminal prosecution that we believe it gave to Donald Trump particularly, and on purpose, starting with what is absolute immunity, the core presidential functions in the Constitution, what is immunity by presumption that could be overcome if it's within the scope of the job or the official duties of the president at the time. And then lastly, what is private, not immune conduct? We thought, wow, that really just effectively, if we map that onto the immunity indictment, we're going to have to watch Jack Smith pull this rabbit out of a hat. He ended up getting a new indictment out of the the superseding indictment, which I think fixes a lot of the problems there. But that wasn't good enough for Donald Trump. Donald Trump says in his motion that the only way that the presidency, therefore Donald Trump, can be protected and the ruling by the Supreme Court can be implemented is if he's given absolute immunity, that can't be rebutted by anything that the prosecution can do, even though that's not what the Supreme Court said. So now he's asking for the judge to give him broader immunity than the broadest immunity that the Supreme Court already gave him. See, Karen in our show always says he's a pig. He gets rulings in his favor that are shocking, that shock the conscience, and yet he asks for more, which always makes the lawyers look incredibly not credible. as advocates, and easily something that the judge can reject and dispatch, which she is going to do. There's going to be another brief, of course, by the government and opposition and a reply. But I'm telling our audience, Judge Chutkan's going to be pissed off when she gets this particular motion. And then you've got all the other motions that are set in October and in later September about the immunity decision, with the airing of new evidence you and I haven't even heard of, maybe some stuff from the Jan 6 committee and the reporting there that won't shock us, but some stuff I'm sure we've never seen before that are now going to be put front and center before the American people, all in DC. Before we move on to the other places, Ben, let's bounce around on DC a bit.
Well, look, there's a term, Occam's razor. Sometimes the simplest explanation is actually the answer. And for Donald Trump, he doesn't want to exist within our legal system, right? He wants to break it. So when you look at his moves, the moves are quite literally to break and destroy the actual underpinnings of the system. I've also said before, if you give Donald Trump an inch, he'll go and take your life. There's a legal fallacy sometimes that it's often is not a fallacy, but sometimes is referred to as a fallacy. The parade of horribles, the slippery slope argument. If you do this, then all of these horrible things are going to happen. It's going to, like the tumbleweed picking up speed, it's all going to grow and then metastasize. And then sometimes the argument is you're just trying to paint a parade of horribles because you want or don't want us to rule a certain way right now. But with Donald Trump, it truly is the parade of horribles. He's telling us what he wants. The slippery slope is very slippery, and we see where it's going. And during the absolute immunity hearing, the justices who were appointed by Democratic administrations, Justice Kaplan, Justice Sotomayor, Ketanji Brown Jackson, Kagan, I said Kaplan, Justice Kagan, they were showing by asking the questions of Trump's lawyers, okay, let's explore the parade of horribles. So you believe that if we rule that you have absolute immunity, that Donald Trump should be able to order the military to kill a political opponent, and then that would be subject to immunity. Is that what you're arguing? And then Donald Trump's lawyer, who's got that, it's a rough voice to listen to, and he speaks really fast, and the justices would slow him down and
John
say,
Sauer. Yeah.
John Sauer, and say, hey, so just pause. You think that's okay? And then they would get him to say, yeah, that would be an official act. Trump would be able to do that. And so that's what Trump views this as. So of course, Trump, and when you listen to Alina Habba speak out there, they believe that this Supreme Court ruling gives them carte blanche to be a dictator on day one. And that's why Donald Trump's saying that he wants to be a dictator on day one. Those are actually words that come out of the mouth of a leader of a political party. And they can gaslight you, and when they try to defend him, oh, he was joking about being a dictator, or he didn't say he'd be a dictator on day one. He said he'd be a dictator for just one day. Well, let me be clear. Dictators don't stay dictators just for one day. Mussolini, Hitler, Maduro, they're not like, you know what? I'm going to do this for one day and then I'm chill. We're cool after. That's not the way dictators operate. And two, it's not funny. When has our body politic become so funny? We're doing dictator jokes now. So good. With all of the history of authoritarianism, we're going to do funny dictator jokes because that's hilarious. I mean, that's unacceptable behavior. So I wanted to put that out there. We still have a lot of stuff to talk about, though. We got to take our last break of the show. Reminder, subscribe right now to the Legal AF MTN channel. It's growing rapidly. I want to make sure everyone subscribes, and it's free. Let's take our last quick break of the show.
Medical tests can reveal your body's biological age, which can show if you're aging prematurely. Better nutrition has been shown to reverse one's bioage. My hope of living longer and healthier is why I take Field of Greens. Field of Greens is an organic superfood fruit and vegetable drink, unlike any other. It's serious nutrition. Listen to this. Field of Greens was approved for a university study that doctors believe may lower your body's biological age. That generally means better health. Each fruit and vegetable in Field of Greens was selected by doctors to support vital body functions like heart, liver, kidneys, metabolism, and immune system. Only Field of Greens is backed by this better health promise. At your next physical or checkup, your doctor will notice your improved health or your money back. Join me in better health with 15% off and free shipping. Visit fieldofgreens.com and use promo code LegalAF. That's promo code LegalAF at fieldofgreens.com. Traditional bed sheets, they can harbor more bacteria than a toilet seat. It can lead to acne, allergies, and stuffy noses, and it's just gross. Miracle Made offers a whole line of self-cleaning, antibacterial bedding, such as sheets, pillowcases, and comforters that prevent up to 99.7% of bacteria growth and require up to 3 times less laundry. Using silver-infused fabrics inspired by NASA, Miracle Made sheets are thermoregulating and designed to keep you at the perfect temperature all night long, no matter the weather. So you get better sleep every night. Miracle sheets are luxuriously comfortable without the high price tag of other luxury brands and feel as nice, if not nicer, than sheets used by some 5-star hotels. Stop sleeping on bacteria. Bacteria can clog your pores, causing breakouts and acne. Sleep clean with Miracle. These sheets are infused with silver that prevent up to 99.7% of bacterial growth, leaving them to stay cleaner and fresh 3 times longer than other sheets. No more gross odors. Go to trymiracle.com/legalaf to try Miracle Made sheets today. And whether you're buying them for yourself or as a gift for a loved one, if you order today, you can save over 40%. And if you use our promo, LegalAF at checkout, you'll get 3 free towels and save an extra 20%. Miracle is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you aren't 100% satisfied, you'll get a full refund. Upgrade your sleep with Miracle Made. Go to trymiracle.com/legalaf and use the code LegalAF to claim your free 3-piece towel set and save over 40% off. Again, that's trymiracle.com/legalaf to treat yourself. Thank you, Miracle Made, for sponsoring this episode. Flavored air isn't like vaping. If vapor was compared to sticky soda, Fume cores are closer to herbal teas. Fume has lots of delicious flavors to choose from, like crisp mint, orange vanilla, and new peach blush. With flavored air, you can satisfy your oral fixation through a passive diffusion system that utilizes no electronics, vapor, or combustion. Fume draws flavor to your mouth and fills the void ditching a bad habit can leave. Fume is not a vape, and there's no nicotine, and it's not addictive. That's very important. Also, Fume has non-toxic flavors. It truly is a guilt-free alternative to your bad habit. The look and feel of Fume is awesome, and the design is super high quality. Fume continuously invests in third-party studies to ensure the safety of their products and is backed by doctors in the U.S. Personally, my favorite flavor is the crisp mint. I love the taste, and I'm truly a huge fan of Fume. So many listeners of Legal AF have told me they've quit their bad habits with Fume, and I know it can do the same for you. Fume has served over 300,000 customers, and you can be the next success story. For a limited time, use my code LegalAF to get a free gift with your Journey Pack. Head to tryfume.com, that's TRYFUM.com, and use code LegalAF or scan the QR code on screen to get a free gift with your order today.
Now, look, I know we have a lot of sponsors. That's a good thing because that helps grow this show. And they're great products. They're great stuff that I use, Popok uses, Jordy scours. You know, we get a lot of sponsorship opportunities now, which is amazing. But Jordy doesn't accept anyone's. We have a whole process that we go through. We meet with the companies. So we do our best. Are we going to be perfect? We ain't perfect. We do our best, but a lot of this stuff is great. All of these sponsors are really, really good. And for everyone you saw here today and the other ones that we've been promoting, check them out. It does help grow the program. Michael Popok, that Legal AF YouTube channel that you're spearheading under your stewardship and leadership, it's crushing. More people subscribing during the breaks. I love it. I love to see it. I want to see it be the fastest channel on the Midas Touch Network to get 100,000.
Me too. By the way, that was the Legal AF studio that I'll be using for a lot of the hot takes that I use for that fume ad.
That's so good. I also found out that my neighbor, who's right there, is a huge Midas Touch fan. That's her green fence. And she said, she goes, that's my fence.
Over the fence.
Midas Touch fan. And it was actually very funny to meet her. And she told me what a great, how much she enjoys the network. So anyway, Popok, Georgia, Matt Gaetz, break it down.
Speed round. Here we go. Speed round. Here we go. Georgia. Georgia's relatively straightforward. Fani Willis is up to her neck in alligators, and particularly Republican alligators, who have been going after her mercilessly, and Trumper lawyers. Speaking of lawyers that should listen to the new campaign about losing your bar license, Ashley Merchant is going after Fani Willis. There's two different events that I'm going to cover here quickly. One, Ashley Merchant, who doesn't want to let anything lie. There's already an issue on appeal about whether Fani Willis's relationship with the person that used to work in her office somehow implicated her prosecutorial discretion, which makes absolutely no sense. But yet the Georgia appellate court seemed very interested in this. And the issue of whether Fani Willis should have been removed from the indictment, and therefore the indictment, I guess, dismissed, is up on at the second level, not the highest level, the intermediary level appellate court with Georgia. There's going to be some hearings later in September and October that we'll report on. In the meantime, Ashley Merchant's driving Fani Willis, the Fulton County DA's office, crazy and up the wall with public records requests, asking for documents about the investigation and Fani Willis and her relationship with the guy and all this other stuff. And there was a hearing, and it got a little snippy. Fani wasn't there. It got a little snippy. And at the end, the judge was like, there should be, I'm concerned the documents weren't produced fast enough, but I'm not going to find anybody in contempt. So just give them all the documents and we'll come back another day if there's an issue. So that was that one hearing. Then at the very same time, Fani Willis has been trying to fight off subpoenas by the Republican Georgia Senate and their investigation committee that's been up her backside to investigate her as payback, MAGA payback for her investigating and prosecuting Donald Trump. Let me remind our audience, for those that are new here and are new to the Legal AF channel, at Legal AF MTN, that Fani Willis didn't get up one morning and go, it's a great idea as a Democrat. I'm going to indict Donald Trump. And then, get on her typewriter, and create an indictment. That's not how that worked. She knew the magnitude of what she was contemplating based on the evidence that had been presented to her. And she impaneled and got permission to do it, a special purpose grand jury whose only role was to guide her as to whether there should be an indictment. So 25 Georgians got together over weeks and weeks and weeks and heard evidence and testimony. And after listening to all of it, they said, yeah, you should. In fact, you should indict more people than the ones you're recommending. Here's the list, and it was like this, adding machine tape of people that should be indicted in Georgia. And she said, "All right, well, let me impanel a real grand jury that actually indicts, and I'll present evidence I'll make my decision about which of the ones that were recommended, because at the end of the day, I'm the prosecutor." And she had her 18 or 19 people, the fake electors, all the little lawyers around Donald Trump, many of which who have lost their bar license on that theme, Rudy Giuliani, Mark Meadows, Mike Roman, and the list goes on. And that's the case. So we have the appeal. Republicans in the Georgia Senate want to bring Fani Willis before them, much the way that Jim Jordan tried to bring her and the Manhattan DA in front of them, because they think they have some role in the separation of powers in telling a prosecutor what to do or to ask the prosecutor questions during ongoing prosecution that's not yet concluded. And so Fani ran, rightly so, and she filed a motion in court to quash the subpoenas, an emergency motion. And here's I think people love this show because we give them the nitty gritty of the procedure. the emergency motion to quash the subpoena was denied because there's no longer an emergency, because the Republicans in the Senate in Georgia have decided that they need to now enforce the subpoena because she didn't show up. And so now after they enforce the subpoena and after they get to a contempt proceeding, then it looks like the judge is going to intervene and do something. But in the meantime, the judge was like, yeah, no, it's not an emergency, so I'm going to deny your relief. It just shows you that we got an uphill battle in Georgia. We have a chance as Democrats and for Kamala Harris to win Georgia and North Carolina. But let me remind everybody, because I know a lot of people, even the woman that your neighbor who lives over your back fence, they always ask us, okay, you're telling us how to ski the course. I mean, you tell us where the flags is, but how do you ski the course? Like, what do we do next? How do we help? You got plenty of time to help. There's voter registration going on in the battleground states. The ones that we have to focus on, especially North Carolina, Georgia, and Pennsylvania. She has to win two of three of those in order to get the White House. There's no other way around it. And Pennsylvania first among them. So in places like Georgia's only gone Democratic twice. Jimmy Carter, who was the governor of the state, and Joe Biden in the history of Georgia. Okay, in the last 75 years. North Carolina's only gone blue once. It wasn't even Biden. It was Barack Obama. And she's got to win. So places like Georgia are really important, but they're headed by Republican institutions. We got a new ruling. I'll leave Georgia on this. We got a new ruling in Georgia by the Georgia Election Board, the state election board, which is dominated 3-2 majority by Trumpers and MAGA. So Trumpers and so MAGA that when Donald Trump was in Georgia last month, he shouted them out by name. They have just passed a rule. Listen to this, Ben. They have just passed a rule that I'm sure will be challenged in court by the Democrats and the Democratic lawyers in Kamala Harris's campaign, forcing the entire state to conduct a hand count of each and every ballot cast, millions and millions of ballots casted from the night, starting on the night of the election, despite the fact that there's a state rule that all the election has to be certified by the Monday after the Tuesday of the election. It is going to be physically impossible. They're never going to have the resources, the amount of people that are required. And even if they did to try to hand count everything, that will inject fraud and error into the hand count, as opposed to the optical reader count and everything else. Every election official and every clerk's office in Georgia told them not to do this. So for some people out there that think, well, I've heard about hand counts. Yes, we have a system in this country of what to do if you're on the losing side of a case of an election and you think there's been fraud. It's called a contest. You file a lawsuit as the loser, Trump, for instance, in court. And maybe they'll be ordered a hand count or some other way to determine if there is a small enough gap margin. Like there has to be all these places have statutes. These states have statutes that tell you like how close an election has to be before you're even entitled to a contest or a recount or a hand count, but not the night of the election. So we're not going to hear from Georgia, which will give them all that time. The Georgia MAGA, all that time, led by Burt Jones, who just got off the hook by another prosecutor. This is what happens if Fani Willis gets removed. Burt Jones was a fake elector. Burt Jones is a lieutenant governor for the state. There are new emails and texts that have just come out about Burt Jones, in which it shows that he was in it up to his neck with MAGA and Donald Trump to try to help him win the 2020 election in Georgia. Despite that, a prosecutor not named Fani Willis, who was an independent prosecutor appointed by the court for other reasons, he decided, no, I don't see anything here. I'm not indicting after 2 years. I'm not indicting Burt Jones, but he's still, one of the heads of the government there and proudly supporting the state election board. What we got to do is we got to go into states like Georgia, work and make sure that the churches and people are registered and people are voting, because this is going to be hand-to-hand combat. That just gave them, this new rule gave them 6 more days to file lawsuits and to not certify the election. We're not going to know the night of the election. No network is now going to be able to call Georgia while they're doing this quote-unquote hand count unless they can get an emergency lawsuit filed and they can win it in time before the election. So that's what's going on in Georgia.
Meanwhile, what the Trump campaign will then try to do in those 6 days is, it's all connected, rush to the United States Supreme Court, get them to try to put their hand on the scales, rush to MAGA Mike Johnson to try to get him to do something, and to then create the chaos because Occam's razor, right? They don't believe in the free and fair elections. And Popok, you say, what is it that we can do? Look, it is important for the sprint right now to the election to support our democracy. But the problem is that what the right-wing extremists, I don't even want to call them conservative, because there's not, as I said before, unless they want to conserve the monarchy and the Magna Carta as opposed to our democracy and our Constitution, what they've been able to do is they've figured out the structural potential defects in our Constitution, and for generations have attacked it. And lots of democracy-loving people are busy working multiple jobs, spending time with family. We're not out there going to JD Vance events with like fake semen sperm cups to show that you think JD Vance is fertile, which is freaking weird. Not going to MAGA events wearing diapers to show solidarity with Donald Trump or having Trump flags. I mean, most people are just going about their days. The corporate media has been an epic failure. That they sane wash all of this stuff and don't even tell you how weird, deranged, cult-like, and bizarre and dangerous it is. And then these groups, whether it's the Heritage Foundation, the Project 2025 originators, then they structurally attack. And then all of a sudden, the pro-democracy people are like, all right, let's go. 40 days, 45 days, whatever it is. Let's go. Let's do it. And that's a sprint. This is a generational marathon that we have to focus on. So you have to, one, also focus on the language, right? We've been trapped in frameworks that have been created by right-wing extremists where heads they win, tails you lose, based on just how they've framed all of the arguments to begin with. The framing gives them an advantage. So you have to let people know that that framing is manipulative. So you have to focus on language shifts, bringing people together, and focus on broad coalitions outside of just the sprint of winning for democracy soon. Anyway, I digress. Because then, maybe I don't digress, you're left with Matt Gaetz and people like that who are now making decisions over you and your family and your body and your kids. And these MAGAs, they are obsessed with attacking families that don't live their weird, perverted, weird lifestyles that they're living, even though they pretend to be holier than thou. They're obsessed with trying to it's weird. Get away from us. Just let us live our lives. Popok, Matt Gaetz.
Right. I love that segue. I love that. I love the segue. And I'm getting my Matt Gaetz notes. It's the perverse. It's just perverse. What's happening in a party, a once proud party, right? The grand old party, we used to call it. I may not have agreed with its policies. I may not have agreed on domestic and foreign policies or things like that. But I wasn't disgusted by the other party and its values or lack of values or its leader. And that's where I'm at right now. I long for the days of a coherent, moral second party in this country. And we don't have it. We've got instead Matt Gaetz, who is now, he keeps telling the public that he doesn't know about this underage woman that he's accused of having sex with, which is also known as rape. He doesn't know her. He goes on Tucker Carlson and says, I never traveled with an underage woman out of the country. Well, we got a new filing in a federal court in a case that we didn't even talk about, the need for Legal AF, the new channel. We didn't even follow this case, the original case. It was a lawsuit that was filed by a Florida lobbyist. His name is Chris Dorworth, who was a friend of Joel Greenberg, who is now in jail for 11 years. But before he went to jail, Joel Greenberg was the wingman for Matt Gaetz. And Joel Greenberg used to be the Seminole, Florida County tax assessor. He used to go after and groom young women for sex and transported them across state lines to do it. Exactly what he accused Matt Gaetz of doing. And he's always claimed through his lawyers that he has been and will be a lead witness against Matt Gaetz because of these drug-fueled sex crimes that they participated in. These are Joel Greenberg's words. Well, Chris Dorworth was also accused of participating in these parties. Makes it sound like it's something that women wanted to be there for. So I won't call it that. These conspiracies that were put together in homes to abuse women, young women. And Chris Dorworth decided, I guess because he had a lobbyist reputation to protect, that he would sue not only Joel Greenberg in a federal court in Orlando, Florida, but he would sue the victim also. So he sued the woman that's always been identified. I'm not outing her on this network. This is how she's always been identified, as AB by her initials. So he actually sued the victim, the woman who underage, under oath, has sworn that Matt Gaetz had sex with her, in other words, raped her. And so Dorworth decided it was a good idea last year to file a lawsuit against Joel Greenberg claiming defamation and against AB claiming the same thing. Well, the problem with that is he's a liar. And the defense lawyers proved it by getting his cell phone tower records, triangulating them, putting him right at the right moment, particularly at a party in July of 2017. That is at the heart of the lawsuit, and other records that they obtained that show that, of course, he was a participant. Joel Greenberg went to Dorworth, and this is all in the filing and in the complaint that was filed, and said, you got to get me a pardon, because Dorworth is a lobbyist, so he would lobby the governor to get him a pardon. I don't know how that would help. Or maybe a Trump pardon, because some of these are federal crimes. And he said, effectively, you know that Matt Gaetz basically committed a crime, and I participated in that. I need a pardon. So there was all of that going on. So in this motion that got filed, along with a series of sworn affidavits from other women, including AB, including the ex-girlfriend of Matt Gaetz, they said that Gaetz participated in these drug-fueled sex act crime party things with underage women. So it's resurfaced again. Where we're at is on the criminal prosecution side of Matt Gaetz. The Department of Justice many months ago, almost a year ago, dropped the case. There was some rumors in the media that they didn't find AB to be as convincing, or they had some questions about her credibility. That is a speculation from reporting. They could always restart that prosecution, and based on what has been filed in federal court, in order to get attorney's fees, because it's a motion for sanctions and attorney's fees against this guy Dorworth because he brought a meritless case. He eventually dismissed it after they showed him he was at the parties. He had to dismiss it, but they filed all of this evidence to prove their case, including all these women and the ex-girlfriend of Matt Gaetz. Department of Justice should reopen, I would suggest, the investigation now that they have this new information and perhaps these new corroborating witness statements. And right now, not yet concluded, is the investigation by the House Ethics Committee, which is the only committee in the House that has no majority leadership. It's 5 and 5 or 6 and 6 Republicans and Democrats. There's no like the majority head. And they have been investigating, and we've heard as recently, I did a report on it, so did you, about 3 or 4 months ago, that they were getting close to making a recommendation about censure against Matt Gaetz, which also could lead to his removal from Congress. In the meantime, he'll tell anybody that will listen, meaning MAGA right-wing media, that he doesn't know the person, this is outrageous, he would never do that. But listen, this kind of reminds me of Tiger Woods. When Tiger Woods had that one woman that came out against him, and then by like 2 weeks later, it was 47 women all said the same thing about him having infidelity in his marriage, and it was all true. I mean, we're starting to see this with Matt Gaetz. I think this is the shoe that is dropping now. And if I'm the Department of Justice and you're watching Midas Touch Legal AF channel or this channel, this YouTube channel, pick up the gauntlet and look at these filed sworn statements against Matt Gaetz and reopen that investigation if it has merit. And the House Ethics Committee, I'm sure, has already gotten their copies of it. The only thing we got to wait on for right now, mainly to protect the privacy of the women. A lot of what's in these things that I've looked at are redacted, meaning these black lines that you see. But there are, unblack-lined versions of these things that the government may be able, and the prosecutors may be able to get their hands on, not in the public docket. So we haven't heard the last of Matt Gaetz, despite his trying to wish it away and will it away. Got a criminal problem again, and I think he's got a House Ethics Committee and possible removal from the House problem again.
Michael Popok, that new YouTube channel is called Legal AF MTN. So you just search it on YouTube, Legal AF MTN, find it, hit subscribe right there. Also, if you want to support the growth of this show, one of the ways to do it, in addition to our supporting our sponsors, whose discount codes are in the description below, is going to patreon.com/legalaf, patreon.com/legalaf. We are going to do a partner associate meeting with all of you soon. As you know, our schedules are a bit in flux. I'm sure you all know. I had been in the hospital with my wife most of last week. She's doing well, and the baby still in the belly is doing very well. They're very healthy. I want to say that from the outset. Sometimes it just takes a little bit longer than the doctors told you at first it was going to. So we were safely discharged. We're back at the house right now, and there will be a new date next week. I'm learning a lot myself here, but there'll be a new date next week. But ultimately, my wife is so incredibly courageous, and I can't wait to meet the baby. And all women out there are just so incredible, and just in general, like I'm just so in awe of this process. And I mean, and just thinking about even just this past week, and again, fortunately, mom's healthy, baby's healthy, but to think about even this past week and the idea of having people make medical decisions for you, and how personal these decisions, ultimately, are, and just like on an everyday basis, at every step of the way, going all the way back, it's a lot. It doubly and triply makes me so committed to just the show and getting out the facts, getting out the law. We'll keep you updated. Obviously, I want to respect my wife and our family's privacy as much as possible, but I know that you all have expressed a great deal of just well wishes and wanting to know. So I just want to make sure everyone knows that she's well, baby and belly's well. And not a day goes by now where I'm not getting a care package from Michael Popok and his incredible wife. Every day I get a new one, and it's absolutely, he's literally every other day, and I'm grateful for it. I'm like, oh, a new one? Who's this from? And it's always from Michael Popok. And it always puts a smile on my face when I see it, and when I'm able to open it. So thank you everybody for watching. Legal AF YouTube channel, subscribe there, patreon.com/legalaf. And please, if you can, support our sponsors. Lots of great products. You'll enjoy those products, and it helps the show as well. Have a great weekend, everybody. We'll see you next time. Or maybe you'll just be seeing Popok in a guest host on Legal AF. Have a good one.